happening. But there's another one that I think needs our attention as well. Okay. Ghana tops African countries with highest debt with IMF. Now, there's a story on citinewsroom.com. If you come there, it says Ghana has maintained its spot as Africa's most indebted country to the International Monetary Fund, IMF. Ghana's debt to the IMF increased by 35.55% over the time period under consideration, per data from the IMF's Quarterly Finances from July ending 2023. This accounts for 9.55% of the 17.6 billion special drawing rights, that's the SDR, in total loans still owed by the fund to African countries. Out of the 5 categories of largest outstanding loans as of July 31, 2023, Ghana's special drawing rights stood at $1.689 billion, higher than $1.246 billion SDR recorded as of April 30, 2023. Ghana had repaid SDR 8 million to the IMF as SDR 1 equals $1.34294 million. Now, as of July 31, 2023, Kenya and the Democratic Republic of Congo held the second and third largest outstanding loans to the fund positions in Africa, respectively. Kenya owed the IMF SDR 1.008, whereas the Democratic Republic of Congo owed 1.142 billion. Sudan and Uganda, whose exposure to the fund is projected at SDR 992 million and SDR 182 million, respectively, kept their positions of 4th and 5th. The remaining 11.32 billion SDR were owed to the IMF by the rest of Africa. So Ghana has maintained its spot. Ghana maintaining its spot as Africa's most indebted country to the IMF. I'll start with you, Elvis.
It depends on how you look at debt and what kind of debt you contract.
Yeah.
See, the problem with the IMF debt is normally about conditionalities. And you see, these conditionalities the IMF puts out there, to me, they are supposed to help us. What do we go there? We say we don't have money. We are broke. And the IMF says, we will support you, but they will also teach you how to raise revenue so that you no longer be broke. So, IMF gives you money. The challenge is there are too many conditionalities.
Yeah.
If you decide to stick to the IMF conditionalities, you can have a relatively stable economy. But then, after the debt defaults and debt forgiveness, we thought that, oh, now our debts, more or half of our debts have been cancelled. And we all said, okay, instead of going to this IMF and the World Bank for them to be giving us all conditions, let's go to the capital market and borrow. And we all resorted to the capital market. We borrow. And all of us that had debt forgiveness as countries under HIPIC, all of us are back into huge debts. And we are all still struggling. See, IMF debt to me, apart from the conditionalities, is better than the capital market because at least they give you relatively very low interest rates on your debt. Following COVID and Ukraine war, in fact, until then, IMF interest was less than 1% on their loans. But following changes and economic crisis and everything, I think IMF is less than 4% interest rate. But our Eurobonds, currently, if you go for Eurobond, you will not get it less than 10%. So clearly, if you are looking at the interest on how much we pay, like you say the IMF is better. They restrict you and make sure that the money they even give you, you use it in a certain way. But when we go to the capital market, we say we have come to borrow. They give us the money. There's no conditionalities as to how to use the money. So we come and then we now decide that, yeah, we'll do this with the money and we'll do that with the money. And the money may go into unproductive sectors. And so when you compare the total debt we owe IMF and then our national debt, you realize the IMF debt is just a fraction, a little fraction. Our total public debt is over $50 billion. So if we owe IMF 3 or 4 billion, compare. Meanwhile, they have given us more generous terms in terms of what we should repay on the loan, but they always say that we can't give you the money and you go and use it the way you like. We think that these are the ways you should use the money so that you can stabilize your economic indicators,
Yeah.
and if you're able to raise more revenue, you should be able to do better and no longer need our assistance. So sometimes when we blame the IMF for our problems, I said, if you do a proper analysis of the IMF loans, if we are people who want to be disciplined and want to keep focus on growing our economy in a certain direction, then you rather prefer to go to the IMF, get a lower interest rate on your loan, and the money will be used for purposes that will be beneficial and produce certain results, than for us to go and take the money and $2 million is given to a company formed in Mauritius that they're coming to do SkyTrain and nobody knows where the money is. And then some money is given to somebody to build a hotel and we don't know where the hotel is. And the money is given to somebody to do this and we can't find the money. And then some money is lost here, then nobody is talking about it. And then we just misuse the money and then we go and borrow more. So you see, sometimes we attack the IMF, but I think that with a proper study, I think that the IMF rather is trying to help us than us going to the capital market to borrow on our own. Because when we borrow from the capital market, it is those in charge of the economy at the time are the one who now decide which sectors of the economy they want to push the money into. But the IMF says, I think when you invest here, when you use the money to do this, if you use to do that, it's beneficial.
Cut down
the government is restricted to do it because it needs that money from that. So for me, as to whether we are at the top of the borrowing of the IMF, I'm not much bothered that we are the highest borrower from the IMF. I'm concerned about whether outside the IMF rather, the capital market loans that we take, if we were using them per the conditions of the IMF, our economies would have been doing better.
Right.
Because the way the IMF makes sure that we use our money well, when we go and borrow on our own, we'll go and put almost 3 billion in NAPCO. NAPCO. And put people, and some of them cry, we don't know, they don't even go to their workplace and they get paid. But we have gone for a loan to do that. IMF will not let you use their money for that.
Okay, right. Let me come to you, Larry. So IMF, the capital market, Ghana Beyond Aid, all these things have come up. Can Ghana ever be self-sufficient?
We should be able to. We should
Will
be able
we?
to.
Can we?
I think we should be able to, and it all depends. Depends on planning. Okay, and planning, investment, and other things. Okay. Now, if we talk about the private sector being the engine of growth, how well are we supporting private sector to develop?
Yeah.
Very often, political parties come into office and with a lot of vendetta. I came to ask you money the other day to sponsor my political activities, and then you refused to give me. You didn't do this, you didn't do that. Your company is owned by, a family member of the party B, and so on. And so then it goes on and on and on and on. And then at the end of the day, all that we are supposed to use those monies for, as in investing in infrastructure, investing in, these other things that will drive the private sector. No. In other countries, people they borrow and give to private sector to function. Yeah. You recall when the credit crunch happened in the US and other places, the Obama government was giving, some subventions to...
I thought they give huge loans.
Yes.
Because they believe that if the auto companies are allowed to collapse, the effect of unemployment on the economy and the loss of taxes are crazy. So just last week, 3 auto companies alone control 150,000 workforce. They have gone on strike. They said they sacrificed during the crisis from 2008, and their wages were cut and all the rest. Now the auto companies are generating huge profits, yet they are not increasing their salaries. And the president of America is backing the workers against the companies. That the government supported you, the workers made sacrifices, and now you are making money. Why are you not sharing with the workers? So you see, we say America is capitalist. Government has no business doing business. But when they realize that during the 2008 crunch, if they allow all those companies to collapse, the country will be hit hard because the number of people will lose their jobs. And the taxes that the government will no longer get. The government, it was billions and billions that they gave to private companies.
Yeah.
So you have, that is state versus private sector operating hand in hand towards attaining a certain objective. A social, welfare state sort of, where the state cares about the individual. that you don't have a job, how do I support you? So during the COVID time, I mean, again, back to the American, story.
Yeah.
They were giving, support,
Checks.
checks to some people.
The mortgage companies
Exactly,
and all the,
everything,
yeah.
So, I mean, by here we borrow and then we don't know. They tell us that it's for infrastructure. And at the end of the day, the money is gone, but the road or whatever it is that, the money was supposed to go into, we can't see. But then we see, senseless projects like the National Cathedral, for instance, that has, is there. Nothing is going on. And I'm sure we can talk about several other projects that have stalled. See the one near the Obechebi
Interchange.
Yeah, interchange. Okay, not just that. When you go into on that Flau Road, there are various interchanges that are,
in terms of the expansion
expansion of the road. It's been stalled.
All the projects.
Which other one? Several others.
Yeah.
It's because we are broke. There's no money.
But you heard the former president, Mahama, flag bearer of NDC, say that when he comes into office, or if he comes into office, he will complete all these projects.
Well, I mean,
Or is another promise? Because we've seen projects like that, government can start their own, any government can start their own.
Everybody in power will say that.
Yeah.
Mahama said that when he was in power. But there were so many projects that he inherited that he never completed until he left office.
Yeah. But then there are others that the Akufo-Addo government also inherited that they never completed. Some they completed.
Yeah.
Others,
they never completed.
They completed and wanted to take the credit. And then the NDC guys came and say, something, we started it. We did this.
Does it really matter?
No, it's normal. I mean, for me, it's normal. You understand? I worry. How do you say that? Or comfort that than or comfort pa?
What's not our red horse?
Oh no. Yeah, for no. So I think I'm better intrigued than you.
It's not
but see, we hear this thing about we have the men. But if the men are leaving us with debt, the men are leaving us with projects that are uncompleted,